Of all the substances available on Earth, water, due to its peculiar physical and chemical properties, has a unique position and plays a very special part in human life. Water is the only substance that occurs in nature in abundance and in all the three aggregate states: solid, liquid, and gaseous. Covering nearly 3/4 of our globe's surface, water is the cradle of human life on Earth. Acting as a powerful geological factor, it determines the appearance of the whole planet. Lake Petrov is the only source of both technological and potable water at Kumtor. It is located near the glacier of the same name, which descends from the northwest slope of the Ak-Shiriak Massif. This area was first visited by an expedition of Alexander Vasilievich Kulbarz, a Russian geographer and military officer. The travel notes of Second Lieutenant Petrov, a member of the expedition, became the first scientific description of the glacier. Shortly afterwards, the melting glacier produced a lake that was named in his honor.
Its first description appeared in 1911. The lake was rather small at the time, but due to natural melting of the glacier, it grew in size.
Even in summertime, the lake water is so cold that only one odd fellow ever ventured to take a dip in the lake throughout the gold mine's existence. Buried under the snow and frozen near the shore, the lake doesn't seem to be big and deep, yet this impression is false. Since the 1970s, all the Tien Shan glaciers have steadily shrunk in area, length, and volume. The Petrov Glacier is no exception. Global climate change makes the glacier retreat, while meltwaters have turned the mountain reservoir into one of the biggest glacial lakes across the Tien Shan. It's about 70 metres deep. The press has lately written much about the concerns of impacts from the lake's outburst flood, threatening both the mine's facilities and the local residents living in the lower reaches of the Naryn River. Yet, statements made so far in this regard have often been too ridiculous to be true. It should be noted that it is largely due to the Kumtor mine that the lake, closely monitored by the mine's environmentalists, has become one of the best explored mountain lakes in the Kyrgyz Republic.
Of course, it's hard to give an exact prediction as to when the outburst flood may occur, but we have found out the approximate location, the dam's most vulnerable point, and assessed its possible effects, including the possible impacts of the outburst flood wave on the tailings management facility.
In 2008-09, the ultimate moraine, which is also the lake's natural dam, was studied by a group of Czech scientists and Kyrgyz hydrologists with the support of Kumtor, the Kumtor Company. Based on their recommendations, permanent monitoring of the natural dam and lake water level is being carried out. The expatriate and domestic experts were unanimous. There is no immediate threat of a lake surface outburst.
Голубой залив – это так называемое термокарстовое озеро, которое образовалось вот в этой моренной плотине.
The Blue Bay is a small, thermokarst lake that developed in the Moraine Glacial Dam as a result of melting of the buried ice due to global warming. The Blue Bay has a natural dam 3 to 4 meters wide and only 9 meters high. If the buried ice of the dam continues to melt, just as it did in some places where it showed up and is now subject to more intensive melting, it may trigger an outburst. But even in that event, this will be a surface outburst. It has been found out by our joint geophysical studies with Czech experts that filtration processes begin just below this part of the dam.
Специалистами геофизики было выявлено, что ниже на этом участке, у основания этой моренной дамбы, начинаются как бы процессы фильтрации.
Various speculations and rumours to the effect of the unpredictability of the mountain's lake's behaviour were disproved by several groups of independent experts. The scientists have meticulously analysed the would-be behaviour of the lake and in what direction water may move in an outburst flood. Even in the worst-case scenario, the outburst flood would be no threat to the lower tailings management facilities. First, because these facilities are located at some distance from the lake, so the flood would pass them while rushing downwards along the valley. This will also be quite evident even without complicated mathematical calculations and formulae once you climb one of the nearby hills. Second, immediately beyond the Petrov Lake Natural Dam, there is a backland river valley, so that, in the event of an outburst, the excess water would just fill the valley to develop a further small lake. The mine's water consumption is about 5.5 million cubic metres a year. The mine takes it from Lake Petrov both for technological and domestic needs. The pump station has two pipelines, one stretching to the gold mill and the other to the camp. The 5.5 million cubic metres is approximately 6 to 7% of the total inflow of the lake. Even the economical Europeans are not as circumspect about the amount of water they use. Various controllers at the pump station are monitoring permanently the amount of water consumed by the mine. Having passed through the entire production cycle and careful treatment, the water returns to nature, being discharged into the Kumtor River. The water intake and discharge figures are nearly identical. The mine employs about 2,000 people. Before arriving at the water supply network of living blocks and the canteen, the water passes through a staged treatment system. The technological processes being rather difficult, we will not describe them in detail. Suffice to say that the greyish, muddy water from Petrov Lake is eventually changed into clean and fresh water that meets the highest sanitary criteria.
Тут установлены по два фильтра.
Two filters have been installed here, one of which contains silica sand while the other is an activated carbon filter. After passing through both of them, the purified water is distributed to the camp. Remarkably, there is a bactericidal device at the exit which contains an ultraviolet lamp.
Even if the pump station comes to a halt, its potable water reserves will be sufficient to supply the mine for a few days. Potable water quality is controlled by a special service which checks water in the water supply system of residual blocks for hazardous substances, admixtures, including residual chlorine and bacterial contamination. The analyses performed at the mine are duplicated by independent experts at Alex Stewart's laboratory, which is of much account in this field. Samples are also sent to an independent laboratory in Canada. Kyrgyzstan's mountains, permanently covered with snow from top to bottom, are one of the most important seats of glaciers in Central Asia. But these glaciers are hiding gold deposits. Thus, another aggregate state of water and ice is what seriously complicates the life of gold producers. Development of deposits in a permafrost environment requires not only more powerful equipment, but also additional resources, including human ones. According to exploration experts, the gold vein lies deep under the Davidov Glacier. To get to it, one first has to remove the ice. According to Life of Mine plans, more than 10 million cubic metres of ice will be removed to special ice dumps. In spite of this 8-digit figure and the colossal amount of work to be done, this, in comparison with the total size of the Davidov Glacier, is just a drop in the glacial ocean.
Everything within the outlines of the mine site will be moved. But I'd like to note that in order that the glacier can live its own life and move freely, we have provided a channel which is about 100 meters wide. It's exactly where we stockpile ice wastes. In other words, the channel is not blocked altogether and the water does not accumulate.
No harm is being done to the ice itself. That's the experiment of the company is undertaking for the first time in the history of mining. The ice dumps are arranged immediately on the Davidov and Lisi glaciers, just a bit lower than the amount of ice itself. Hence that of potable water conserved in it doesn't change. The entire process is closely monitored by environmentalists and glaciologists. After comparing the reports of their colleagues who had explored these two glaciers back in the middle of the 1900s, the scientists concluded that human impacts on the glaciers, their movement and melting rates, if any, are insignificant of importance to the environment.
The glacier's boundaries have somewhat changed due to the fact that the site was partly moved and part of the ice was removed from the mining area to the idle one. It has just been removed from one part to the other.
Under the influence of climate change, any glacier shrinks, gradually submerging into its moraine deposits which protect it from melting. In the Kumtor case, the waste material removed from the open pit serves as this protective shield. Therefore, during its operation, Kumtor, in a measure, conserved glaciers by mitigating the climatic impact on them.
те меры, которые предпринимаются Комтором для снижения отрицательных воздействий на окружающую среду, они соответствуют.
The steps which Kumtor is taking to minimize its impact on the environment meet international standards and allow us to regard this production as environment friendly.
Это производство, безопасным с экологической точки зрения.
The work of the entire gold mill hangs on this combination of hydrogen and oxygen. Water remains the basic element of nearly all production cycles, from ore grinding to dressing. Remarkably, 1 cubic metre of water is on average required to produce 1 tonne of ore. The best dissolver, H2O, in combination with chemicals, is instrumental in recovering gold from ore, while the gold concentrate produced in a series of technological cycles eventually goes into the melting furnace.
На фабрике вода используется буквально почти во всех циклах.
Water is used by the mill virtually for each of its cycles, beginning with crushing. Water is supplied to the mill in the proportion of approximately 50-50 to make the ore to mix up with the water, suppress dust, and create an environment that facilitates crushing. Water is likewise used during the next flotation cycle, where we have to produce solutions of some chemicals. For it's precisely during flotation that primary enrichment takes place. If the gold grade of the incoming ore is, for example, 3 grams per ton, the gold content of the flotation concentrate will be 30 grams per ton, or 10 times higher.
Первичное обогащение. Если, например, поступающая радиоконцентрация золота, скажем, 3 грамма на тонну, то в флотоконцентрате он в 10 раз выше, то есть будет примерно 30 грамм на тонну.
Even when the entire production process is over, water is still helpful in bringing the slurry to the tailings basin.
Пульпа – это, грубо говоря, раствор.
The slurry is, roughly speaking, a solution consisting of 50% water and 50% solids, which contain the remains of crushed ore. It is almost barren, yet contains a small remnant amount of gold, as well as those chemicals that were previously used by the mill, including cyanide.
Химикаты, которые использовались в различных технологических процессах золотоизвлекательной фабрики, в том числе цианиды. Почему говорят о том,
Why is the slurry said to be dangerous? It's primarily because it still contains cyanide even after the gold has been recovered, and this slurry is supplied to the tailings management facility.
Извлечение золота, остатки цианидов, естественно, находятся в пульпе, которая направляется в хвостохранилище.
The slurry pipeline is approximately 7 kilometres long. Its 2 pipes are made of ultra-strong material, precluding any leakage. The tailings basin is located in the lower part of the valley in the old watercourse of the river Arabelle Sou, which was artificially dammed. Huge in amount, reaching almost 110 million cubic metres and having a unique operating environment, this structure is able to withstand earthquakes measuring 7.5 on the Richter scale. Although the permafrost environment guarantees that the mine's effluents will not get into groundwater, a special strong film was laid in the bottom and on the interior part of the dam to provide additional protection. In spite of the fact that the commercial production of gold commenced in 1997, no effluents were treated or discharged until June 1999. During these 2.5 years, the total amount of industrial waste was accumulated in the tailings basin. In 1999, an effluent treatment plant was built. This has been regularly modernised and is able to treat up to 1,700 cubic metres of industrial waste per hour. Yet, the tailings basin is where the treatment process starts. Nature also largely contributes to this process, as cyanides or cyanhydric acid salts, widely used by the gold mill for gold recovery, readily decompose into carbonic acid and nitrogen under the action of the sun's ultraviolet rays and air.
Под действием солнечных лучей и кислорода воздуха происходит.
Under exposure to the sun rays and atmospheric oxygen, cyanide readily decomposes in water. In other words, the sun rays containing an ultraviolet spectrum reach about half a meter to the depth.
содержащие ультрафиолетовый
Water,
спектр,
under the action of the
который,
wind, is agitated and natural decomposition of cyanide occurs.
при перемешивании воды
In our
и
experiments, we have
ветра
found out that cyanide concentration in the upper layers of effluent is lower than in the depth.
Соответствующие эксперименты, что на поверхности концентрация цианидов в воде, в сточных водах водохранилища меньше, чем, например, в глубине.
As the bottom of the tailings basin is inclined, the solid particles in the slurry settle at the base of the dam. In the upper part, the settled water flows down the pumps of the effluent treatment plant. Powerful pumps drive water to the first of 3 ponds used by the effluent treatment plant. The 2 firsts are where cyanides are decomposed by special chemicals and heavy metals settle.
Для разрушения цианидов нам необходим метабисульфид натрия как источник двух.
To destroy cyanide, we need sodium metabisulfite as the source of sulfur dioxide and atmospheric oxygen. These are 2 substances that enable us to transform cyanide into a less hazardous thiocyanate. During the subsequent chemical reactions, total destruction occurs, resulting in the creation of gaseous nitrogen and carbon dioxide, which are normal components of atmospheric air.
Газ азот и углекислый газ, которые являются нормальными составляющими частями атмосферного воздуха.
The last, third pond, is where the industrial waste already treated settles for another 3 weeks. The effluent treatment system is based on the patented INCO SO2 method, which consists of destroying cyanide, settling heavy metals, and controlling the pH level. The tailings from the mill consist half of water and half of solids. The industrial wastes arrive at the tailings management facilities. Permafrost and the ultra-strong film on the bottom serve as reliable protection against the slurry getting into groundwater. The water, already settled, is driven by pumps from the tailings storage facilities to the first pond, where cyanide is decomposed under the action of sun, oxygen, and chemicals. Cyanide decomposition continues in a second pond, where salts of heavy metals deposit. Next, the water flow is fed by gravity to a third pond, where the effluents are kept for more than 3 weeks before being discharged into the Kumtor River after all admixtures have properly settled.
The process is unique in that cyanide destruction occurs at an altitude of more than 4,000 meters in an environment which lacks oxygen. In other words, we add oxygen mechanically while destroying metals and cyanide. That's what makes the process so unique.
The processes that take place in each of the ponds are closely monitored by the environmental officers of the company and government experts. The water quality is checked by several independent laboratories before the water is discharged into the Kumtor River.
Today, we are working on sample T84. Also, we are conducting tests for cyanide, metals, pH, ammonium, and we see that all figures are lower than the maximum permissible concentration.
All analyses performed by the mine's experts are also duplicated by the independent Alex Stewart Laboratory. It's simply a must. Also, there is a government environment service whose employees take water samples and perform analyses in their licensed laboratory. In the past 15 years of the mine's operation, the environmentalists have never recorded a case where the concentration of hazardous substances in water discharge into the Kumtor River was higher than the maximum allowable level.
Water partly evaporates and some of its suspended matter settles. This is then diluted many times. With water thus purified, hazardous substances cannot reach Narin either theoretically or practically. No such substances have ever been recorded there. Moreover, highly toxic cyanide possesses one very important property. It decomposes very fast. Professionals dealing with cyanide have always known this. In old medical textbooks, you can also read that you have no grounds to fear for your life unless you have died in the first second or experienced high blood pressure or palpitations.
Вы спокойно продолжаете жить дальше. И чин-чин нас стоит чего там.
The effluent treatment plant does not operate in late autumn and in winter. The slurry fed by the gold mill is accumulated in the tailings management facilities. Before suspending the effluent treatment plant during the winter and spring seasons, the company employees dismantle the pumps, the only link connecting the tailings management facilities with effluent treatment and discharge system. At this time, access to the pump station, dubbed Titanic, is denied to everybody.
During the pre-commissioning and maintenance operations this winter, all our dosing pumps and other equipment will be examined by mechanics and electricians.
Water is the element capable of dissolving the earth, extinguishing fire, filling air with invisible vapours, forming clouds and pouring rain on the earth, and giving birth to new life. While employing this power, one has to understand all possible risks that may turn into great expenditures and losses if ignored. That's why the mine experts are so meticulous about the risks in order to take immediate measures for maintaining the environmental security of the region. For, if we pause and think, we will realise that we ourselves are nothing but animated H2O.